My sister betrayed me 6 years ago, and now my parents tried to force a reunion by inviting her to my bridal shower without asking me. Hey Reddit. 6 years ago, my world crumbled. My sister, Rachel, wasn't just my sibling, she was my best friend, my confidant, my ride or die. We grew up doing everything together, from childhood tea parties to late-night heart-to-hearts in our shared bedroom. I trusted her with everything, until the day she shattered that trust beyond repair. I had been dating Andrew for 3 years at the time. He was charming, attentive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We were planning to get engaged. I'd even picked out the perfect ring with him. Life seemed like a fairy tale, until the betrayal. One night, I came home early from work to surprise Andrew with tickets to his favorite band's concert. Instead, I found his car in my sister's driveway. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off. Rachel and Andrew were friends through me, and I figured he might have been asking her for advice about the proposal. That naive hope shattered when I stepped inside and heard laughter coming from her bedroom. I didn't want to believe it, but something in me pushed forward. The sight of Andrew and Rachel in bed together is burned into my memory like a scar that never fades. They didn't even notice me at first, too wrapped up in each other. When they finally saw me standing there, they froze, but the damage was done. My sister tried to explain, to justify it as some sort of mistake, but there's no mistaking that level of betrayal. I cut them both out of my life that day. Andrew and I broke up, and I told Rachel I never wanted to see or speak to her again. My parents begged me to forgive her, claiming that family should stick together no matter what. I told them I'd never forgive her for destroying my relationship and my trust. It wasn't just about Andrew, it was about the principle. She had crossed a line that no apology could ever fix. In the years that followed, I rebuilt my life from scratch. Therapy helped me process the betrayal, and I eventually met someone new, Michael. Michael is everything Andrew wasn't: kind, dependable, and trustworthy. He knew about my past and was nothing but supportive as I worked through my lingering insecurities. When he proposed last year, I felt like I finally had a chance at happiness again. But my parents never stopped pushing for reconciliation. They'd bring up Rachel every chance they got, telling me she missed me and wanted to make things right. I made it clear that I wasn't interested. As far as I was concerned, Rachel ceased to be my sister the day I caught her with Andrew. Fast forward to last week, when my best friend and maid of honor, Lily, threw me a beautiful bridal shower. Everything was perfect: the decorations, the food, the company. I felt surrounded by love and support, that is, until Rachel walked through the door. The moment I saw her, it felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My parents were right behind her, looking sheepish but determined. Rachel had the audacity to walk up to me with a smile like nothing had ever happened. I couldn't believe it. My heart started racing, and I felt a mix of anger and panic bubbling to the surface. Lily noticed immediately and pulled me aside. She had no idea Rachel was coming. My parents had apparently invited her behind my back. They'd told her they wanted to surprise me with a family reunion. I was furious. How dare they hijack my special day to force a reconciliation I never wanted? Rachel approached me while Lily was still talking. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, glaring at her. She said she wanted to apologize, that she regretted everything and just wanted her sister back. I wasn't having it. I told her this wasn't the time or place, and she had no right to show up uninvited. My parents jumped in, trying to mediate. They accused me of being stubborn and unforgiving, saying Rachel had suffered enough and deserved another chance. That was the breaking point. I told them they had no right to dictate my feelings or who I chose to have in my life. The guests were watching the scene unfold, and I felt humiliated. This was supposed to be a celebration of my upcoming marriage, not a family drama for everyone to witness. I told Rachel and my parents to leave. They protested, but Lily and a couple of my other friends stepped in and escorted them out. I was shaking with anger and disbelief. The rest of the shower was a blur. I tried to enjoy it, but the damage was done. Later that night, I received a long email from my parents, accusing me of being heartless and selfish. They said Rachel was family, and I was tearing the family apart by refusing to forgive her. They claimed I was overreacting to a mistake that happened years ago and that it was time to move on. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on Michael and the friends who truly supported me. But the incident left me questioning everything. Was I being too harsh? Should I have handled things differently? Or was I justified in standing my ground? Update: a heartfelt apology or manipulation? The day after the shower, I received a letter in the mail from Rachel. It was handwritten, several pages long, and filled with apologies. She admitted she'd made a horrible mistake and said she'd been living with guilt ever since. She claimed she didn't reach out sooner because she didn't know how to face me. The letter was emotional and detailed, recounting how she'd hit rock bottom after I cut her off. She described how she'd sought therapy, turned her life around, and realized the depth of her betrayal. She ended the letter by saying she missed her big sister and begged me to give her a chance to make amends. She even included a photo of us as kids, holding hands and grinning from ear to ear. It tugged at my heartstrings, but I wasn't sure if it was genuine or just another attempt to manipulate me. I showed the letter to Michael, who suggested I take some time to process it. He reminded me that forgiveness doesn't have to mean reconciliation and that I needed to do what felt right for me, not what others expected. My parents, of course, doubled down on their stance. They said Rachel's letter was proof that she was sincere and accused me of being cruel for ignoring her. I told them forgiveness was my choice, not theirs, and that they had no right to pressure me. Another update. The truth finally comes out. A few days later, I met with Lily to vent about everything. She mentioned something that stuck with me. She said Rachel's behavior seemed almost too perfect, like she'd rehearsed her apology. It made me wonder if there was more to the story. I did some digging and found out Rachel had recently broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years. Apparently, she'd been struggling financially and moved back in with my parents. It made me question her motives. Was she truly sorry, or was she looking for a fresh start now that her life was falling apart? I decided to confront Rachel directly. We met at a cafe, and I laid everything on the table. I told her I didn't trust her and wanted to know why she was suddenly so desperate to reconcile. At first, she stuck to her story, saying she missed me and wanted to fix our relationship. But when I mentioned her breakup and financial struggles, she got defensive. Eventually, she admitted that living with our parents had brought back memories of our childhood and made her realize how much she missed me. She said she wanted a relationship with me, not because she needed something, but because she regretted what she'd done. I told her I needed time to think. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part couldn't shake the feeling that her apology was more about easing her guilt than making things right. That's where things stand now. I'm torn between protecting my peace and giving my sister a chance to prove she's changed. My wedding is just weeks away, and I don't want this drama overshadowing my big day. What would you do in my shoes? Final update. A wedding, a decision, and closure. Here's how everything finally came to a head. After our meeting at the cafe, I felt more conflicted than ever. Rachel's tears seemed genuine, but the timing of her apology still felt suspect. With my wedding fast approaching, I didn't want to dwell on the drama, so I decided to take some time to focus on myself and Michael. But my parents weren't done. They called me daily, begging me to invite Rachel to the wedding. They claimed I'd regret it forever if I didn't, saying this was an opportunity to heal the family. Their relentless badgering took a toll. I snapped during one call, telling them their constant pushing was making me reconsider inviting them to the wedding. That shut them up, for a while. Then, a week before the wedding, Rachel sent me another letter. This time, it wasn't an emotional plea, it was raw honesty. She admitted she had been selfish all those years ago, knowing Andrew was off limits but choosing to betray me anyway. She said she'd been immature, insecure, and jealous of the happiness I had with him. She confessed she was still trying to figure out who she was back then and made horrible choices that she regretted every day. She ended the letter by saying she would respect whatever decision I made about her role in my life. She wouldn't come to the wedding unless I explicitly invited her. I sat with that letter for hours. For the first time, it felt like Rachel wasn't trying to manipulate me or push for forgiveness on her terms. She was finally leaving the ball in my court. When the big day arrived, I still hadn't responded to Rachel. I decided to let her absence at the wedding be my answer. As I walked down the aisle, surrounded by people who truly loved and supported me, I didn't feel a void where Rachel should have been. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Michael and I exchanged vows under a canopy of flowers, and it was the most beautiful, joyous day of my life. During the reception, I gave a heartfelt speech thanking my friends and family, those who had stood by me through thick and thin. My parents were there, but they kept their distance, sensing that I wasn't in the mood for their usual lectures. That night, as Michael and I danced under the twinkling lights, I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I didn't need to let Rachel back into my life to move forward. I could forgive her silently, in my own time, without reopening old wounds. A week after the wedding, I wrote Rachel a letter. I told her I appreciated her honesty and was glad she was working on herself, but I wasn't ready to have a relationship with her. I explained that her betrayal had left scars that might never fully heal, and while I forgave her in my heart, I needed to prioritize my own peace and happiness. Rachel responded with a short note, thanking me for my honesty and wishing me the best. She said she hoped one day I might be open to reconnecting, but she understood if that day never came. It was the most mature response I'd ever received from her, and for that, I was grateful. As for my parents, they were disappointed, but they eventually backed off. I think they realized that continuing to push me would only drive a wedge further between us. It's been 6 months since my wedding, and life has never been better. Michael and I are thriving, and I've surrounded myself with people who uplift and support me. Rachel is still a distant memory, but I've made peace with the past. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and resentment. I may never fully trust Rachel again, but I've let go of the pain she caused me. And in doing so, I've found a happiness I never thought possible. To anyone out there grappling with betrayal or family drama, know this: it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to prioritize your well-being. And it's okay to move on without looking back. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. I hope my story helps someone else find the strength to choose peace over chaos. And that's a wrap for today's video, folks. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Thanks for watching.